Thank the Force! Thursday night, Star Wars Newsnet Live. We are here, and I am wearing my Star Wars attire this evening. Oh my goodness! Because what a whirlwind, Tom. I was in my last class for my summer semester of grad school, and I am quite confident coming into this final class for the semester that I will be out with plenty of time to get home by 10 o'clock for our show, and with the well enough time to even prepare a little bit and send any information, any correspondence. And like, I feel like my shirt just looks weird with the camera, but I walk into my apartment at 9:55
It's
because
it's
my class
rebellion
went.
business rebellion
Oh,
business casual.
so my class went for like 4.5 hours. I was in that class, and I was not anticipating that. Normally classes are around no more than 2 hours, and here I was for 4.5. Good information, all of those things. It's the last one of the semester, but 4.5 hours. I could have driven to Miami, gone to the club, and made it to an Airbnb in time for the pod. So what
Nice.
an interesting day so far. So I'm exhausted, but exhausted in the best kind of way, because that means who knows what I might say about Star Wars this evening, as we have a very fun main topic tonight. We're going to get into what Anakin's role could be in Ahsoka season 2, given some rumorlicious things out there.
Oh
But
yeah.
we have a couple of other fun topics to get into for the news. But Tom, are you, just before we get into the Anakin stuff at all, like a deep dive into it real quick, are you excited for Ahsoka season 2? Like, is that something you're eagerly, like, really looking forward to? Or are you someone that's more of, well, wait and see before I get my hopes up too much? But I think you liked most of season 1. Is that correct?
I did. I think the thing that I didn't expect, which I'm really excited for, is all the Clone Wars tie-ins and flashbacks and things like that. So I am very excited. I think I'm about as excited for Ahsoka season 2 as I am for Mandalorian and Grogu. So like,
Wow.
yeah, I mean, I think that we'll get into
As a
it, of course.
Makbar.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, Filoni kind of teased a couple of tantalizing tidbits for season 2. So it almost seems like there's two shows going on with the Ahsoka and Sabine. What's going on in their neck of the woods, and what's going to be going on with Thrawn back in the I guess back in town. So to see how that affects the New Republic. So I'm really excited, because I feel like this is going to give us the first chance to I mean, we've seen the New Republic era
Right.
in Mandalorian, but this is going to really take us, as a few episodes of season 1 did, take us really into the heart of things, like what's going on in the Republic. So yeah, I'm really excited, and of course we'll get into it. There were a lot of interesting rumors and fan theories out there about how Anakin is going to play a role in season 2. So I'm really pumped. How are you?
It's going to be. I can't wait for Ahsoka season 2, just because I know that right now I'm not, I guess, the most hyped for it, but it's more of a, I know I will be so hyped next fall whenever it's getting ready to be released, because we'll have gone a full year and a half without a Star Wars show, like a live action Star Wars show. I still think Maul's going to come out in the first few months of next year, I still think, but we'll see on that. And then you throw in the fact we'll be coming off the high of a Star Wars movie, I hope, and everything that's going to look like with the countdowns for a movie, the celebrations, all of the promos, the media, and then of course the natural fallout from a Star Wars movie that exists every time one comes out. We'll have to deal with that as well. The rationale of the fan base, of course, but no, it'll be fun. And Ahsoka season 2 is going to tie up a lot of things that I think a lot of people were hoping would be answered with the sequel trilogy of well, how does a First Order just rise up out of nowhere? You know,
Mhm.
how does the New Republic fall so easily? I think season 2 will give us some of those answers. So I am looking forward to that. But a few things before we get into Ahsoka season 2. And first of all, we have to discuss the fact that George Lucas made a public appearance at Comic-Con for the first time. He's at San Diego Comic-Con, first time he's ever gone. Had the largest audience ever for a Sunday panel talking about his new museum of art. He gave a quick synopsis of, you know, what he feels like art means and what art means to him. And I appreciate every time because it's very limited nowadays, you know, the George Lucas outings and those George Lucas interviews that we have now, that he's out of the limelight of Star Wars and he's more like focused on these passion projects and the preservation of certain things, which is really exciting. And I loved hearing about some of the things going on at his museum. But some of the Star Wars things he mentioned were the fact there's going to be a, you know, a full, there was like a, what was it, a life size, full to scale model of like an in one like Starfighter or something, and then you had the original General Grievous. What was it, like the little wheel bike that he has that George Lucas said was going to be there? I was like, pull up exactly what he was saying was going to be there, but I was like, yeah, it was a life size Naboo Starfighter, the General Grievous on his wheel bike. I'm sure there'll be other Star Wars things as well, but I can't imagine walking in and seeing a life size Naboo Starfighter and, you know, not either like pissing my pants or collapsing in a state of euphoria. So Tom, what were did you have any like fun little takeaways or just interesting thoughts from George Lucas's appearance at Comic-Con over the weekend?
You know, Comic-Con has a lot of history with Star Wars. That's where originally they started to get the hype going for the original movie at Comic-Con, I think in 1976, to really, I guess,
Right.
get fans interested. They knew the audience that was going to really embrace it, no matter how it did, I guess, as a movie. So they were there, and it's good to see Lucas back. He looks
Right.
great. And one thing that I'm really happy about, and I know someone that's really into comics, and from the art perspective, he's an artist.
Yeah.
He's really into that, and he was just so excited feeling that Lucas was really recognizing some of the beautiful work that's been done throughout the years from illustrators and comic artists and pop art and that sort of thing. And a lot of times, you know, I live in New York. A lot of times there's a bit of a, I guess, that kind of media has really been looked down on, you know, like people, you know, they look at it as a lesser form of art, you know. But it's great to see that he's actually focusing on, you know, pop art and things of that nature, because, you know, as I've said, we've seen such beautiful work throughout the years. And I know he has a rare collection of kind of eclectic art, from comic books to like Frida Kahlo and Norman Rockwell. So I'm very excited. I hope, I'd love to visit the museum. Hopefully I'll be there for Celebration in 2027, and I'd love to stop there and check it out. I mean, looks like a beautiful museum to begin with. The architecture is amazing.
Well, one of the things that is exciting too is when you think about the prospect of a Star Wars Celebration 2027 in Los Angeles. You know, it's very close for George Lucas to make a Star Wars Celebration. He looks sharp. He looks somewhat, you know, George Lucas has never been the most, I guess, emotionally, like, you can't really tell all the time. You know, he's a quirky guy, but to see him out and about willing to come talk about something and feel like excited, he seems like he's doing well. Like I said, he's sharp, like focused. He was eager to talk about things. It made me think that, you know, it's not that far removed from Celebration that you would hope that they would find a way to make him there for Celebration, that he would want to show up for the 50th celebration. My dream panel for a Star Wars Celebration for the 50th anniversary would be to be able to get as many people who were a part of A New Hope there as possible. Like, can you get George, Mark, Harrison, any of the creators, any of the people that worked on set, like, and as many people as possible to be a part of one big, celebration panel of that movie. And obviously George would be a fixture of that. And I think that would just be a wonderful panel to have, but it would feel incomplete if you didn't have George there to commemorate that, because obviously this wouldn't exist without him. So it was exciting to see him there. My follow-up question for you would be, if there was a single, this, he said, like, this is gonna be a full-size Naboo starfighter that's here, and General Grievous's bike. What would be the thing you would just lose your mind over if you were right there next to it, to scale model? And you can't say the Death Star, obviously, because it would encompass our entire planet. But other than that, what would be something that would just make you go, wow?
I have to say, seeing the Millennium Falcon at I've been to Galaxy's Edge at Disney. That for me was, I don't know if I could top that, but I think he also mentioned that there's going to be a replica of Luke's land speeder, if not the original one that they had, if that still exists. But yeah, I mean, any of those, seeing a Naboo starfighter is pretty cool. I'm trying to think if there's anything else, maybe like I'm a big vehicle person with Star Wars. I'm trying to think what would really like blow my mind. Maybe like something, if I'll go really strange, like a B-wing or something like that. I don't know how that would work,
like
but
really out there,
that would be very impressive. But like I said, seeing the Millennium Falcon is always number one on my list, and seeing that at Galaxy's Edge, I think that was for me. I don't know if I can top that, but any of them would be pretty amazing.
It is remarkable because the way they have it hidden at Galaxy's Edge is you just turn the corner, and it's there. So it does kind of just come out of nowhere. You're just turning and then boom. It's not like you see it from this far distance and it's getting larger and larger. It's no, you kind of turn the corner and boom, Millennium Falcon is there. And it is one of those breathtaking experiences. Like, as a Star Wars fan, like, you have this emotional response every single time that you see the Falcon. I'm trying to think, for me, other than like the Falcon, and there's a couple of things you've kind of seen sometimes at Disney with they have like some of the AT-ATs that are there, like an AT-ST, but M1 Starfighter would be incredible. Something that I think would be awesome is if they built, this is impossible for like a museum, right? This one is just impossible, right? But what if they had like a Geonosian arena that I could walk to somewhere? You know how like I could go to the Colosseum in Rome, but what if I had that here where I could walk to the Geonosian Colosseum? What would be fascinating though, and they could probably pull something like this off, is having all of the pod racers from Phantom Menace, like having like live,
that's pretty cool.
Like life-size pod racers that they would just there and like kind of line them up, and you could have little models of some of the characters that were there, some of the droids. That would be fun. I would love to see something like that. But
yeah, any kind of replica, even of sets, maybe like the Emperor's throne room from Return of the Jedi or something, Jabba's palace. Would be pretty cool. Like,
life-size Jabba,
immersive. Yeah, something immersive you can walk into would be pretty awesome. And I know that it's not really a Star Wars museum per se,
right?
But they'll probably have fun exhibits like that. So
I would love to see. I wonder. This was another thing I would love to have some of the early. Him and James Cameron are friends, right? So I'm thinking of early designs maybe they had for like Alien, and wonder if they could get some sort of like xenomorph early, because I know they were using those those real suits and everything for those. So I would love to get some. I was thinking like Alien. I love Alien stuff, or if they could ever. But I love the fact that he said the original Flash Gordon comic, the original Iron Man comic is going to be there. Some of the art is going to be exciting. So let's go ahead. A couple things here. The Crystal Crown came out this week, a book from Tessa Gratton, Acolyte book, and I haven't started. I bought it. I haven't started reading it yet. I don't think you've read this one, right? You haven't picked this one up. So
not yet.
No, I'm not even familiar with the story at all, other than I know that it's a Yord and Jeki story. So my only question for you is, which of these two characters would you be more interested in reading about? But also, I'm curious, are you more interested at all in these characters, knowing how short-lived they are?
Hmm. That's a good question. I feel like they kind of had an untimely end in the Acolyte. It would have been nice to have more, see more of their relationship,
Mm.
I guess their story. So yeah, I mean, I'm interested. You know, if it's Star Wars, I am kind of interested in. I don't know what timeline or what time this takes place. If
Mhm.
it's right before the events of the Acolyte series or year or two before. I don't know. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm interested. I feel like um, I feel like I was more excited going into the Acolyte for Jackie,
Mhm.
but I think in the show I kind of really enjoyed Yord's character. I
Poor
like,
Yord.
yeah, I know. I liked his I liked the portrayal of the character. I like that he was kind of, I guess he was trying to be very like, he was trying
Right.
to kind of fit the shoes of like, I guess of a, being a like, I guess, real renowned Jedi. And, he kept trying like, I guess to be the hero. Jackie, I felt like Jackie's character, interesting. I know you mentioned Star Trek earlier,
Mhm.
when we were talking, but like she reminded me more of like Mr. Spock. The way that
Okay.
like her character was, I guess the way it was written was more like, I don't want to say deadpan, but more like serious,
Hmm.
except for like certain moments here and there. Um, so yeah, I think that, like I said, going in, I was more interested in Jackie's story, but I think I'd like to know more about Yord from what I saw in the show.
Clearly, Jackie has a very defined opinion of who Yord is and what Yord's about, and you could tell she's not the most thrilled to work with Yord and have Yord around. And so I am curious where that comes from. I'm going to assume that a lot of this stems from the time here, but it is curious that these two are the ones that are focal point of a story when they have that such an untimely end, maybe in Acolytes. But maybe this is to build upon the tragedy. It makes it even more tragic that they die so young. But I'll be honest, if I was reading a book of characters from the Acolyte, Master Soul is the guy I want to read more about personally, or
Yeah.
get more of the Vernestra Rowe backstory. But which they do have the book Wayseeker, which I haven't read yet, from Justina Ireland, which does have Vernestra Rowe, Master Rendard as an Acolyte story. I am willing to give this one a try because Tessa Gratton is a great Star Wars author. She wrote Temptation of the Force, which is my second favorite High Republic book, period, maybe third. It's a tough when you're doing that. She wrote Path of the Seat, which is a great High Republic book. So she does have a history of writing really quality Star Wars stories. So I am willing to see what this one's all about. And there's another book that comes out very soon. I have read this one. Comes out here early August, early mid-August, I think. And it's from Lamar Giles. It is Sanctuary, a Bad Batch novel. Now, Tom, I absolutely love this book. I think it is fantastic, and any fan of the Bad Batch will like it. And I also think a lot of fans of Andor are going to enjoy it as well. I wrote a full review on Star Wars Newsnet for it if you guys want to check it out. And we're hoping to get an interview with the author Lamar Giles very soon as well for the site and for the channel. Now, my question to you would be, what, like, Bad Batch, not even just talking about Sanctuary, but what Bad Batch characters would you be most interested in for a book? And keep in mind that this one takes place in the middle of season 2, but you do not have to tie it to that timeline. I'm just curious in general, what Bad Batch characters you'd be more interested in reading about.
I think for me, I was thinking about this. Hunter definitely,
Mhm.
but I think Crosshair, because I his arc, I think, was very interesting throughout the show. Um, how he, and just I love how the show kind of, they were, soldiers that were kind of forgotten
Mhm.
you know by their country in a way, and kind
Right.
of cast aside. And it was very interesting, but I loved Crosshair's arc, I guess. I found it very interesting.
Absolutely.
So I think I would like to, if I had to pick one character, I think it would be him that I'd like to, like, I guess, see more of.
So Crosshair's not in the book. He has a couple moments where he like pops up. There's like a dream sequence where he says something, right, where Hunter's dreaming and Crosshair pops up in the dream, which is nice. And there are moments, of course, where he's mentioned, but his presence is looming over the entire story because the batch do feel incomplete. They don't feel whole without him, and it's noticeable for everyone. It's this unspoken, missing piece. And so while I was disappointed that Crosshair wasn't in the story, because he's one of the characters I'm most excited to continue to read about when we get these stories, it was a necessary evil for the story that they're telling here, which is an excellent one. It feels like you're getting that mission of the week with just deeper insight into some of our favorite characters. But I also love the little nuggets about that Lamar Giles throws in there about Crosshair through Omega's perspective, because at this point, Omega has basically no time with Crosshair because she hasn't been in that prison with him yet. She's talked to him very briefly when they're, at the very end of season 1, when she tells Crosshair that, your brothers still love you. They would welcome you back. They briefly interacted, at the very beginning of the season. But other than that, she basically says in the book, she's like, in her monologue, she's essentially saying that I don't have love for Crosshair. Like, I don't care about him really. Like, he's my brother. I want him to be okay. But she doesn't have those feelings that she has like the rest of them. And just knowing it by the end of season 3, how much she clings to Crosshair and relies on him and loves him is fun to kind of see her now internalizing that lack of feeling and emotion towards him, knowing where it ends up. And then, of course, Tech obviously is a big part of this book as well. But so I actually, if you like the Bad Batch and you also like Andor, I think this book really will fit in well. I kind of talk about that in my review. And there are some really fun surprises in this one. Some people might say, oh, it's a fan service surprise, but it works for this book. It actually works. I think you would actually really enjoy it. It's an easy read. I'm not saying that it's not stimulating, but it's easy to get through because it's just fun. It just picks up right away. You're like laughing to yourself because you could picture Hunter getting annoyed at the lack of execution on a mission, or Wrecker just waiting outside where they're going on this mission, just eager to get in and start punching people. It's good. It's good. So if you're going to read any book that's come out recently, I would actually think you should check that one out here in a month.
We'll make a note of that. I definitely should pick it up.
All right. So let's get into the bulk of the conversation this evening, because we're talking about the Chosen One. We have Hayden Christensen, of course, confirmed for Ahsoka season 2, and that has left a lot of conversation of what is his role going to be. There are some very clear avenues to get some answers on this, but there was also the recent, Screen Rant article, which is, let me phrase this before and say this, so rumor heavy that I honestly wouldn't put too much stock into it at all, because this is just what happens at cons and events. But essentially, he had an event scheduled in October, but then said, the statement that the event put out was that Hayden couldn't make it to the event because they informed him that he would still be filming for Ahsoka season 2 in October. Right. We know they've been filming now for well over a couple months. Obviously, the shoot is supposed to end in October, this filming time. So if he's still there in October and he's got commitments, we know he's been filming scenes already. Could his role, the rumor is his role much larger than what we saw in season 1, where he was more of brief cameos and then had his one episode? Or is he more of like a recurring character that plays a pivotal role in the season, is where the conversation has kind of tilted a little bit online. Now, there's a lot to unpack here, because I think we can kind of like draw lines of where the season is going a little bit in regards to Anakin. But I just want to ask you first, Tom, like what role, like how much, I guess, let's go there first. How much do you think we're going to see Anakin in season 2?
Well, I want to say one thing first. I'm just so happy that the fans have re-embraced Hayden Christensen. He was in Obi-Wan. He played a big role in that. Of course, in Ahsoka, and he's back again. And I was just so happy to see, because I know when the prequels came out, you know, there was backlash to everything, you know, as fans and the media kind of critique things to death. I know that it was probably hard for him, and he, you know, he did a few other movies, and then he kind of disappeared. So it's
And you
so
could see the emotions on his face when he was met with that fan, you know, embrace at, you know,
yeah,
his first convention a couple years ago.
right. So I'm just so happy. I think that he's going to be used heavily in Ahsoka season 2. I think that
Okay. Wow.
I think he's going to be very important to the events on Peridia, which I believe, like I said, it's going to be like almost like 2 shows. There's going to be what's going on in the core galaxy, and then what's going on in Peridia. I don't
Okay.
know how much time we're going to spend there, but I think we're going to spend a considerable amount of time, because Balin has his story going, Ahsoka and Sabine, of course. So I think we're going to spend some considerable time. And the way that it ended, teasing the Mortis gods, I
Right.
think that Anakin is going to play, if I read all my rumors correctly, I think he's going to play a big role in that story. As far as that, if you know, definitely, I know I need to. I was doing some recaps. It's been a while. I remember loving the Mortis arc when it came in Clone Wars. There was nothing like it in Star Wars, and I thought it was so interesting and unique. So I want to rewatch those episodes again, just to be, I guess, more up in it. But I was looking at it, and there's a lot of speculation going on. I don't want to talk too much, because I want to give you a chance to jump in. But
No, the Mortis God speculation has been there for so long, and even before Ahsoka season 1, you know, but when he was there, and like that arc, I believe, did more damage to like Star Wars conversation than almost anything outside of the Chosen One prophecy. I'll be honest, I am not a fan.
not a fan of him
I
showing up.
think I know of the Mortis arc from Clone Wars. I
Oh,
think
really?
that
Interesting.
I enjoy the arc from the standpoint of, I think it's really cool. It's a lot of lore. I love all the nerdy things, but from the message that it like conveys, when you kind of take in the totality of where Star Wars is now too, I think people take that one arc from Clone Wars way too seriously, as in like we saw Anakin's entire purpose in life existing in that one 2-3 episode arc in Clone Wars, and we're gonna see that manifested in Ahsoka season 2, which I think I don't think there's any chance of that happening.
Okay. I kind of I see your point. I think that when that came out, when Clone Wars was when those episodes came out, that was all that there was as far as Star Wars is concerned. Storytelling,
Right.
visual storytelling, you know, aside from books and whatnot. When the Disney acquisition happened, and they started writing the sequel trilogy, I feel like Filoni, I think if that didn't happen and they continued and then maybe did something afterwards from Lucasfilm before it was Disney, I think with Filoni, if say Lucas was still involved, I think that we would have seen more of Mortis. Like, I think that was kind of opening, to me, I felt that like it
Right.
was going to go in that direction. Should it have or not? I don't know. I'm not saying that, you know, I don't like what's come out or the direction things have gone, but I just personally feel that they were going to go in that direction, which was kind of like taking Star Wars in a different direction. I thought it
Right.
was cool, but like I don't know if it would have been for everybody.
I
Now
think
that
it's
they're
cool. I think it's
yeah,
cool.
now that they're coming back to it with Ahsoka, now that Filoni has his kind of projects that he's working on, there's a danger, I think, of things getting a little convoluted. I feel like, because it could be, it's almost like Star Wars is multiverse in a way. So I feel like, I hope it's treated with care. Like, I hope the way it's done, because I think it might, for the casual fans, it might be a little confusing too.
Right.
So I'm really curious. One of the things
Might be a little confusing. It's if
it
we watch
is.
Ahsoka season 2 and the father, like the brother shows up in Ahsoka season 2, right? And let's say, whoever's playing the brother,
Did you
and we
hear a
have
rumor that it might be if they have the brother? I don't know where this rumor came from. Like I said, take it with a grain of salt. But they said that possibly Sam Witwer
right. Yeah,
playing the brother.
I heard the same rumor. So, but here we're having people that are casual fans, that because there's so many levels of Star Wars fans. You have the casuals that are, I'm only watching movies that come out. And then there's the casual fans that only watch saga films, because like people that never watched like Solo, and they might not even go see Mandalorian and Grogu. And then you have the casual fans that are only watching the live action shows as well. And then you have the ones that are getting in watching all of these animation shows. I guarantee you that there's going to be people that as soon as that episode, I was watching Ahsoka season 1's finale with some friends. I was the only one in the room that knew who the statue was. And if we're
Right.
going to say that a 2 or 3 episode arc from Clone Wars season, what was it, like season 3, 4, I don't know, like season 3, is going to be this pivotal end all be all for Anakin Skywalker's story, I just can't imagine that one going over well with fans that
Mhm.
aren't aware. But I also just wonder if you mentioned how convoluted things get.
Yeah.
When I watched that Mortis arc episode, I was like, "Oh, this was cool," but Anakin like rejected that because I know how his story goes with, he's got to be there for Luke to help his son. That's how they're going to end the Sith and do that. And he balances the Force and defeats Palpatine for a time to create this balance. And then now Rey comes back. She uses knowledge with Anakin, speaks to her, and it gets a little convoluted there because you have all of this, and now you have to start telling people, well, he was the chosen one for that time, and we balanced the Force for a time. Of course there's going to be out of balance in the future, which I think is logical. We can make those assumptions, and now we're jumping back in time to where he is now this Force ghost existing on other galaxies, where he's going to play this massive role in some sort of Force god manifestation of the Force spiritually. I think you run the risk of losing people because they treated this show. If Filoni said you don't need to watch Rebels to watch Ahsoka, you don't need to have seen Clone Wars to watch Ahsoka. But if they go so heavy into the Mortis gods and all that, then it feels like, one, you're going to have to do lots of homework to understand, or you're going to be watching YouTube videos for an hour after the episodes to do it. So I do think there's a way they can thread the needle here, though.
Yes.
I just don't think that threading the needle means more Hayden Christensen. I think the less of him we get actually probably makes it easier for them to tell that story.
I see. I totally get what you're saying. Maybe we won't see Hayden Christensen as much, but Anakin will be more powerful in the story. I think that one way you could do it without making it too convoluted is you could simply tell it. And I think that one way that I think, I mean, who knows?
Right.
And like, I could speculate all day, but it may not even fly.
Right. Well, this is what the season's for. Like, it's fun to speculate. That's one of the joys of being a Star Wars fan, is just having wild speculation, knowing that three things are possible. One, no, they're never gonna like answer that question ever. Or two, it's no one's gonna remember, a year and a half from now. And then like three, you could just, make up another speculation later.
I think if it was me, and again, let's see how this flies, but if they could tell that story of Mortis, obviously they're part of it because we saw the statues, but if they could tell that story as simply as possible so you don't lose the casual fans, but you still satisfy the people that saw everything. And I think in a way, not that Anakin has to take his place as this Force god, but if you could make his calling, if you want to say that like that, calling as the chosen one more deeper than just one prophecy for one moment, and make it something like a destiny that he's carried with him, that it goes like deeper than just what he did by killing
Mhm.
Palpatine, I guess, for that time. You know, like if you could make him as the chosen one just a more profound concept,
Mhm.
that it was like almost like ordained, and even more so than just a prophecy,
Okay.
that it was, that it carries through, and it still ripples through,
Okay.
I guess, what's happening now and into the future. I think that would be really cool,
Okay.
because I think it would make just Anakin would be then the center of everything, basically.
Right.
And I think
So
that would
I
be,
have a counter. I have a
yeah,
counter
go
for
ahead.
this. Anakin at the center of everything hurts Star Wars at this point, and I think it hurts this show because it's not the Anakin Skywalker show. This is supposed to be about Ahsoka,
Right,
and I think if you're creating a chosen one arc using Mortis for Anakin, and like the whole he's now the father, I think it
right,
diminishes from Ahsoka's story. And so I've felt for a while that when we saw the Mortis gods, this wasn't going to be Anakin fulfilling any sort of destiny. If anything, we know Ahsoka is going to be able to see those statues, and she's going to understand maybe a little bit more of what's at play here. And there, if anything, it just might be a conversation between Ahsoka and Anakin about how Anakin choosing not to stay in Mortis and become the father, there is something at work, an evil or an unbalance is going to take place or has taken root, partly because Anakin chose not to say, and because Ahsoka was saved by the daughter, and she, in many ways, she is the daughter and is going to embody that. It's now that responsibility is going to fall onto her to see this through.
right,
And while she's not necessarily the chosen one, she is the one needed in order to make sure the balance is still kept on that side of everything going on and like the more mystical spiritual part of the force. And then that becomes her story, and I think it enhances the Clone Wars arc because it keeps Anakin's story as the chosen one intact as we know it, and then it adds more layers and consequences to his decision there that doesn't allow him to come back, but it actually reinforces Ahsoka as, why it was so important and crucial for her to be saved by the daughter, and then how she's going to manifest some of that into whatever plays out on Peridia. And then it's still Ahsoka's story. Anakin could
right,
serve as like a mentor or even like an exposition dump in that way. Like we could have some sort of exposition dump with Ahsoka and Anakin where they're talking about Mortis for a few minutes to catch everyone else up. Or we can do, they're probably gonna be, I firmly believe Ewan's coming back in this show for flashback sequences. I 100% think that if Ewan's coming back for a flashback sequence, we could definitely get Ewan and Hayden, and we go back to the Clone Wars and we go to a live action Mortis flashback, and they don't necessarily do shot for shot of what happened on Mortis, but they get like a live action interpretation of other events that happened there during their stay, or a reinterpretation of what happened in animation. And so that way you could catch up some people who aren't aware of that, and then we can focus on Ahsoka's story. I think that might be what Hayden's role is primarily, is for that flashback to Mortis, and then serving as a spiritual guide almost for Ahsoka as she's having to take on this challenge that is almost ethereal. Like it's not even like existing in this plane. And I think it's gonna be really cool to see how that plays out though.
I think that's a great point. I think everything you said sounded great, because yeah, I mean, you're right. The show is called Ahsoka. She has to embody that. I think the thing that's the toughest for me is, where does that leave Luke in all of this, in this time period? So they still haven't explained
Mhm.
kind of where Ahsoka was during, I guess, the events of the original trilogy. I know that there've
Okay.
been pieces here and there.
Right.
So for that powerful of a Jedi to be around, or if I guess not a Jedi at that point, but a Force user.
She's, by all intents and purposes,
Yeah,
Jedi. Like I'm willing to say that.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, very interesting. Like you said, I mean, I think my Anakin, I think I've been going down too many rabbit holes about
No, because I think
character.
that's something that's very prevalent in the fandom is why are you bringing Hayden back for because you could have easily said on season 1, I took his Force Ghost appearing there as like a sign that he's going to be there and be prevalent in her
Right.
life moving forward. But you could easily have not brought Hayden back for season 2 and said that he appeared there finally because Ahsoka had accepted, who he was, every little bit of it, and learned to live with it and come through it on the other side. Like, you could have easily said like his arc was resolved for her, but you're bringing him back for a specific reason, which, of course, for the very nature of who we are as Star Wars fans, is going to get us to go down and be like, all right, what does this mean? Because of a giant rock statue that they had to throw in there, which immediately got every single Clone Wars fan's brain, going, or Rebels fans, because, of course, Sabine's going to be familiar with those statues too, because she's going to have seen the art from, the World Between Worlds art. So it definitely ties in. But we could definitely talk about like where that leaves Luke. You brought up an interesting point, is what is Luke doing at this time? Because we just saw Ahsoka leave him in the Book of Boba Fett when he's rebuilding. He's like essentially building his first Jedi temple, it looks like, and he's in the beginning stages of that. What role is he going to play with Thrawn? Which is why I think it's brilliant for Filoni to create this mystical Force arc in an entirely other galaxy, so that way he could play around with some of these concepts he's really wanting to, and you don't have to worry about it impacting necessarily Luke, so to speak. But I guess it is interesting. Do you think that we would see any of those characters like Luke? Do you think we'll see him like in Ahsoka season 2? What's he? I'm sure he's working to defeat Thrawn. But then if you're having Anakin appearing to Ahsoka all the time, it is interesting that he wouldn't appear to his son at all either. And by all intents and purposes, we by everything we know so far, the only time I think that he's ever appeared to Luke as a Force ghost is in Shadow of the Sith novel by Adam Christopher. In that book, he appears, unless there's a comic I'm missing, which is possible, but most of those comics are before Return of the Jedi. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see. It feels, and I'm not saying this is going to happen, it feels like Ahsoka season 2 and that whole era is turning into a canon retelling of the Heir to the Empire series.
Right.
So I have mixed feelings about bringing in the legacy characters to the show. I mean, the fanboy in me wants to see all of them, obviously.
Of course.
I think that it would be weird if they didn't show up at some point or be mentioned.
Well, we got the Leia mention
Luke.
at least. We got the Leia mention at least in season 1,
right?
With 3PO showing up, but obviously that's very different than we know she's there.
That was a convenient way of like, I mean, because they're important. So yeah, it's interesting, in that, I really don't know what Filoni's going to do. I don't know how closely he'll follow those, because it's basically what was happening with, the way that the pieces are setting up, I should say.
Right.
Of course, this whole Peridia thing was not part of that. But yeah, I'm very interested in seeing it. I think yeah, I don't know. Again, like, it's interesting to have these points. I felt like, what is Anakin? And then, well, you said, well, he's showing up to Ahsoka, and then I've read some fan theories. Maybe it's the son, trying to deceive her. I don't think that's true, but there's a lot.
That would piss me off.
Yeah.
So quick, I'd be raging in the streets. I'd call out of work to go fly over to Lucasfilm headquarters and protest against it if that happened.
I don't think they're going to do that.
Losing it. No, it's fascinating that we're able to have. It's fun to be able to have Anakin Skywalker discussions in 2025, and then those will continue into 2026. That is very exciting. How, as someone who, I think that clearly you are someone that enjoys the Mortis arc a little bit more than I do, and just from the standpoint of like what it means for like the lore of Star Wars, I've always been a little bit. It's one of those arcs where I really enjoy when I get to it in Clone Wars. I think it's so epic. It's there's this almost there's this holistic nature to it. It feels almost spiritual of what's happening, and this spiritual battle between the Force itself, and then Anakin is the one helping bring balance to that. So my question is, as someone who really dives into that and really enjoys that more, is there going to be part of you that's upset if Anakin's role is more tertiary, on the fringes, and they don't dive into more of his role to play in all of Mortis, and it's more of his role's been resolved and we're moving on, and this is more about what Ahsoka can do to stop this, and Anakin's more of just like a guide, or just more flashbacks only?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'd be disappointed if that happened, because like you said, we're in this new era now, in the new Republic era, and what really, I don't know what else Anakin can do other than mentor Ahsoka. So I wouldn't be disappointed. I think maybe only because, I mean, like I said, it'd be cool to see if Filoni gets really out there with that and goes really deep into that lore. I think that would interest me, but I think you might lose some people if he does that. I think you can do that wrong. So in a way, like I said, where the convolution, like it gets convoluted and people are confused and they're just not really into it. I think you can mess that up. But if they just pepper it in a little bit and get some of the lore, I think it would be pretty interesting. So just, if you go too far, like I said, it's gonna,
we don't want to lose people
off.
So that's why I think the best format for her being, or for Mortis being involved in the Mortis gods, as we call them, being involved in season 2, is to give some sort of flashback reference. And I would be shocked at this point. I'm telling you right now, be shocked if we don't see Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi in this show. Like, I'll be stunned if they're not going to bring Anakin and bring Hayden back. They're going to do probably more flashback sequences when we have Ewan that's been begging to come back and play Obi-Wan. This man wants to play Obi-Wan again so bad, and every interview I've ever seen this man give for the last few years is, I would love to get the Clone Wars armor on and give it a try. Like, so I just have a hard time thinking they're not going to bring him back for a little flashback sequence. And it makes sense you can fill people in with a different take on a Mortis arc, but then tie it into how Anakin's refusal to become the father in that instance and take that place. Make that a focal point of where the story's going, but how it ties back to Ahsoka, not necessarily what Anakin has to do now to assume his rightful place. Instead, it's, hey, I chose not to do this. I chose other path to follow. And there are maybe consequences for him in that. And so you can serve as a flashback sequence to discuss things, but then have him as this spiritual guide, like a Force ghost that appears to Ahsoka. Like, I'll be shocked if they don't have a conversation in this season. That's another thing that I think you could pencil it in. We got RG said, do we get him as a Force ghost as well? I wonder. I'll be stunned if we don't have Ahsoka and Anakin having a conversation in the presence of the timeline with a Force ghost and, her having a conversation. Be stunned.
Yeah, I mean, I feel, to me, it's low-hanging fruit. I mean, I don't think it's really, I mean, obviously as a fan, you'd be so exciting to see Ahsoka, Ewan, and Hayden Christensen together. But I think that it would be, I think it could be important to the story. So I feel like it could be done really well. I think, like you said, the flashbacks, I think they could use that for exposition for, people that didn't watch the shows, the animated shows. I think it would be important. I think it would just be cool to have the three of them there together in live action. I think that would be pretty awesome.
And like you said, you could tie it to the story. You could tell that story of using that flashback, having conversations with Anakin and Ahsoka, and you can include Sabine in those conversations as well, because I think that would be fascinating to watch them interact as what, to a certain degree, and then tie it into, okay, how does that, and what does mistakes we made in the past, or the circumstances of our past, how does that tie into what we need to do right now? in order to solve this problem, because we really, as much as we want to speculate about what's going to happen with these Mortisers, we have no idea. Like, they could not be involved in this at all. This could be them pointing at something else. The father is seen pointing in the direction of this light that's going off. We have no idea what that's going to be. It could be something that, we're not even supposed to be aware of. Like, do not let this evil out. A lot of people like to throw out like Abeloth and like the mother and some of those things. I'm wondering if it's going to be something else entirely that Dave is cooking up. There are so many possibilities to where the Mortis might not even really be involved in this. It might just be more of a like flashback. We get information from them to serve us moving forward. So it's fun to speculate on what all of those things might look like. But a couple of things that I'm really hoping for Hayden's role in this is, one, like that, mentor and guide, and to see their relationship take another like evolution. And then I would love for him to serve as that mentor and guide to help her find like her purpose for what she needs to do in Peridia, to kind of help her take the next step, where it's like she has become comfortable. She's owning the fact that her master was both imparted greatness upon her and great things, but also is part of the darkness that was within her, and is Darth Vader. She's accepted that. She's moved on from that, and now she is a new person, almost reborn in that sense. And now I want to see how they interact moving forward, and how he could still teach her to step up for the next task at hand, her greatest task that she needs to complete as well.
Yeah, I feel like they have so much more narrative material in this season. Like, I guess with season 1, we really didn't know which direction it was going to go. Right. But I feel like they have, there's so many directions they can take this, and there's a lot that they need to cover. So I'm really excited for it. I think, like I said, maybe even a little more than the Mandalorian and Grogu, because I just want to see, like, I feel like it really touches on some of the things I love about Star Wars that I know is going to, I don't really know anything about Mandalorian and Grogu's story, but I feel like we kind of know, I guess, the different things we're going to see. Right. I'm sure Filoni has a few tricks up his sleeve, but I think that there's so much potential for season 2.
Season 2 is going to build upon the lore of Star Wars, and will probably have more galactic altering events than The Mandalorian and Grogu will, just because of the nature of what the show is. I mean, this is going to depict the defining moment of the New Republic era that leads to the rise of the First Order. So just by its very nature, it's going to probably be more grander in story. But the reason I'm more excited for Mandalorian Grogu is just movie back at the big screen, totally. Seeing it on the IMAX theater. I think that's what I'm drawn to. Here's what I'm hoping for with Peridia, just to kind of talk about Ahsoka season 2 for a minute. I swear they better make this place more interesting. It was the most boring place to look at visually that entire season. And then we finally have these giant statues, these rock statues of the Mortisers. I'm like, oh, we just stumbled, finally something interesting to like look at. That's incredible. And like, because the Dath Mori, with like the kingdom of the Night Sisters and like the Night Witches, there was some like remnants of that was fascinating. But then for 3 episodes, we were just looking at rocks and gravel. Like, we're going into this new, where the father was pointing for Balin to go. It looked like there was these mountain ranges and these dark paths. Like, I want to see crazy creatures. I want to see these like new creatures we haven't seen before that they're having to escape while they're out. I want to see treacherous landscapes. I want to see lots of bright colors and lights flashing. Like, I want to see why this galaxy is different from our others. Like, I don't want this to be the same thing. I think what I would akin it to is when you watch like Harry Potter for the first time, and you're like, let's say you're watching the first movie, right? Or you're reading the book, and he's living in the Muggle world, the regular world. And then he goes to Diagon Alley. Everything's tilted. The colors in there go from very like grayscale, kind of dark, dreary, to there's vibrant life. Everything's a little off kilter. There's weird stuff going on. Like, I would love for a different galaxy. It should feel different. Like, there should be a completely different vibe, tone, and aesthetic when I'm watching. But it just looks like a barren wasteland that I might see from like Obi-Wan Kenobi's episode 3, when we were there in the grassy field and plains. So I'm hoping that they maybe diversify what Peridea could be in this season.
Yeah, I will disagree just a little bit with you, because when we first got to Peridea, I think because the way it was played up, I thought it was really I had this I felt the same way in the Mandalorian, and people disagreed with what I'm gonna say, but
Okay.
the Mandalorian episode when they were at Tython, I guess, when they had to put Grogu on the stone, there was something about the desolation that, like, how can I say, it was like almost like it was very off-putting. It was very like there was something like kind of like scary about it. And I felt that way when we first went to Peridea. I'm like, oh wow, this is when we first went there. But I think, and up till like, I love Thrawn's entrance. I love all of that, and it was so cool because it was almost like you felt like you were exploring this new place that was like never seen before. But I felt some of the pace of those episodes, like you said, after a while it got tired. It got it wasn't as interesting. But I think when we first saw it, I had high hopes for it.
Well, I agree. When we first see it, like, you get the remnants of the kingdom of the Dathomir. You get the remnants of the kingdom. There's broken statues. There's fallen structures that are falling down. But then, so I agree with you at the beginning. But then there's like 3 episodes where they're just rocks and grass, and you don't see anything at all. And I'm thinking, oh, if this was this giant kingdom, maybe it expands further, and there are the remnants of different, buildings that exist beyond just this one centralized location. Instead, it's just, no, we don't get any of that. It's just this boring landscape. We didn't even get any new creatures. They had the little like hog wolf things that the raiders rode, which were, that's
Those
something
cool.
new. But and like the turtles, but I want to see some new designs where everything in this galaxy should feel weird and should feel unknown. Unless, similar like with the Night Sisters, you're bringing aspects from our galaxy into this one as like an origin story almost, and you're seeing what existed thousands of years ago, and you're like seeing the little Easter eggs pop in there for other things, like the Mortis God statue. It opens up a whole lot of questions, but that the whole area, it should feel like that same feeling you had at the beginning, like that should exist throughout our time there. And I'm hoping that they course correct on that for season 2, because I'll be really disappointed if season 2 in Peridea is just us hanging around with the turtles, walking around the rocks for the same landscape over and over. Like, I'm gonna be pretty upset.
I'm a little worried about that. Yeah.
Do you think Anakin's going to play a role in Ahsoka getting back to the other galaxy, or do you think that he will have served his purpose before then?
I think he will play a role with getting them back, because right now there's really no way of them getting off of there. So unless someone, I guess, steals Thrawn's I guess hyperspace ring or whatever that was that brought the Star Destroyer back. Yeah, I think Anakin will play a role somehow in doing that. I'm curious to see how Balin and Shin and Ahsoka and Sabine interact. Like, I'm sure at some point they're going to come together over something, and they may just decide to help each other out to get out of there. But I mean, I don't know what Balin wants. I don't know if he just wants more knowledge or of the mystery that he was searching for. But I think at some point, at least Shin will probably join Sabine and Ahsoka in some way, just to work their way to get out of there. That's what I think. But I think Anakin will play a role because he has to do something there. I don't mean to say it like that, but
no, he could have a very easy hero, like a hero moment again, for sure.
Yeah.
So something that I think would be interesting. This is maybe the only way right now I could see the kind of the arc that you had initially painted out for him as like being the father, doing all those things, is if Ahsoka is able to overcome and stop some force on Peridia temporarily and then is able to get her way back, but she feels compelled to stay in order to make that happen. I wonder if you could create a story where she's able to get back to the main galaxy towards the end of the season to help stop whatever's happening. But the only way she's able to get back is if Anakin stays behind, like some sort of, Force Ghost Nexus thing where he stays and takes on that burden for her as like this last act as master. And that could explain away why he doesn't show up to Luke in, the sequel era, why he's
Yeah.
not showing up as a Force Ghost at different times. And the only time we see or hear from him essentially is when you have the whatchamacallit, where you have his voice in The Rise of Skywalker, and he appeared, which is easy explanation for that. I would get confused on timelines. I'm wondering, there's his Force Ghost does show up to Luke, and he's saving him from these Sith like Force Wraith things on Exegol, everything, but it's his ability to do that is very strained. He almost looks in pain while doing it, and so you could easily make those connections. And not a lot of people have read that book compared to what we'll be watching Ahsoka, but sometimes you try to make it somewhat canon, oriented. That's the only way I could really see him taking on that role, is if it's for some reason he has to do that for her to get back. And that's kind of like, you're not taking away from her agency as a character necessarily, because she's going back to save the day somewhere else too. And she's already done what she needed to do here. Anakin's just going to have a little hero moment so she can get back. And then we keep going from there.
Yeah, and again, when I was talking about Anakin before, I didn't mean that he would be taking over as the father. I don't know if they're going to go that direction. But what I was talking about is just, I want to see something if they bring back Mortis. Like I said, if we were still doing the Clone Wars, I'd say, okay, yeah, explore it, go deep into it, and maybe he takes us on or something. But I want to see them leverage it in a way to make Anakin, I would say, not that you make his sacrifice or who he was bigger, but like that it just continues to ripple throughout like the future of Star Wars, I think would be really cool. Not that he has to take the place of the father or the son.
Right. Okay. No, that makes sense. Okay.
But I don't know what they'll do with the whole daughter thing. So that remains to be seen with, Morai and everything like that. But I would like them to leverage it. I'd like to see Anakin, I guess for me, I'd like to see Anakin's, like I said, his importance continue to carry on.
Absolutely.
Almost like, how can I say, like making his redemption reverberate even more so. So, yeah, I mean,
like if Luke hadn't have been there and helped his father finally turn back, and then he wouldn't have been able to fulfill what he needs to in this series. And it kind of adds more to the lore of Anakin and to the necessity of him as the chosen one, or as whoever he needs to be. Though I think that actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and it wouldn't rely the exposition, everything that's happening will be in the show, and it won't be like that you have to watch or really be an expert on like what's come before in the animated shows.
Right.
You don't have to do a deep dive unless you wanted to. Right. But yeah, like I said, plain and simple, I hope they satisfy what they teased us with in a way that will not be confusing for, I guess, the casual fan, but also satisfy the people like us that like dive into it.
This is just me saying nonsense, okay? This is just me saying something that could not be true. Hayden Christensen's coming back for Ahsoka season 2. I have an incredibly hard time thinking that anything they do with his character anything they do with Anakin Skywalker is being done, that Filoni is doing with his character, is being done without the direct blessing of George Lucas. Like, I would just be stunned, because Filoni obviously has the utmost respect for George and knows that Anakin, like that's George's, it's like Ahsoka is Dave's like this is my baby. Anakin is like it's like George's baby, right? And I would just be stunned if they're going to be doing any sort of shifts with Anakin, expanding upon his character or adding in some of these sequences that Filoni is doing if he doesn't have a conversation, 5 minutes with George, like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Okay, yeah, I think that's a good idea, because I just have a hard time thinking that Filoni would take on like that character that means so much to his mentor, his Jedi master, if he didn't feel 100% comfortable that George would be on board with that. And maybe they haven't had a conversation on the phone about this. Maybe this is something that they had talked about before when they had worked on Clone Wars, and when they when Filoni maybe consulted him about other projects in Star Wars. They may have had conversations about where would you see Anakin after he comes back. Is there anything more to that story? And George may have shared some ideas. I just have a really hard time thinking that Filoni's going to do anything with that character that wasn't at least inspired by, or 100% you got a stamp of approval from the maker himself.
Yeah, I think a lot of the stuff I've talked about, like they can do obviously whatever they want, but I think you're right. I think that he does really feel like he protects kind of like Lucas's original vision. So I would see, I would see that. Who knows how much Lucas is involved? You see him show up sometimes to the Mandalorian sets, and I think he was at Ahsoka, or maybe when they were doing the Ahsoka episode of Mandalorian.
Right.
But I think for me, plain and simple, I think all the stuff I talk about with Anakin and Luke, I want to see their characters kind of immortal in a way in the Star Wars lore. Not that everything has to be about them, but that they kind of have this presence, like
they're the shining, they're like the pole stars. They're not
right.
They don't
they
get
were like
overshadowed
the
by
in a way, like
the
not in the bad sense of patriarch.
No, because
like
you could throw Leia in as like a matriarch of Star Wars as well.
Yeah. So I feel like we may be getting that for Anakin, and we're starting to see that for Anakin. I want to see the same for Luke. And I feel like maybe as they make shows and movies after Rise of Skywalker, we'll see more of that. And
see, I think we already have, because I think that Rey essentially taking on the Skywalker name because of the twins, I think was their way of saying like, oh, like their legacy is going to live on, because I'm sure that you'll get Luke and Leia references if there's a Rey story that's ever. And then just the fact that the name Skywalker will continue, I think is just completely a nod to the twins. And then when I said that I think Filoni wouldn't do this without consent from George or even doing anything, I don't think that any other character in Star Wars falls under that category except for Anakin. Like, I think that there's a special reverence that Lucas has for Anakin more so than any other character, which is why I don't think Filoni would hesitate. If he feels like he has a great story for Luke or Leia or Han, I think he's going to go ahead and tell that. I think it's specifically Anakin, given everything that went into the Clone Wars and obviously with the prequels. I think that there is just a special reverence that he has for that character, where Filoni would be hesitant to do anything drastic with expanding it, even if it's in a great way, expand it without being like, hey, got this idea, or it's an idea somewhat birthed from something Lucas has said in the past. So I don't know.
I mean,
again, that's all just my personal speculation.
I remember when the prequels were in production, and Lucas was he said in an interview, I think it was with Wired magazine, that in the original trilogy, that's all we had at that point. And they said that it seems like Luke is kind of like the main person, but he said that when he was making the prequels, it was interesting. He says it's really all Anakin, and that he was like the center of it. So I think, like you said, I think Filoni really understands that and wants to protect Lucas's vision. Some people hold that against him at times, that he's holding to that, but I kind of trust him, especially where he's going.
100%.
And I think season 2 will hopefully correct some of the issues. A lot of the issues weren't so much even It was, I think, just production of the show. Like,
I have never once had ever in my life doubted the vision that Filoni has presented. I have always felt he's an incredible vision guy. And I love Rebels. I love Clone Wars. In Ahsoka, because live action is just so different from animation. And I have felt that the vision for Ahsoka was there. I could see the vision, and there's a lot of really cool stuff in that vision. Like, it is
right.
all of the greatness that embodies Star
100%.
Wars lore mixed in with the stakes of the Empire and the familiar beats that you're used to, and it's just told in a different way. But I felt like the writer's room, he needed a few more people in there to rein him in on some aspects that
Execution.
got stretched out too long. It was the execution for me that fell a little flat. Now, I would also argue that I think Filoni is adaptable and is someone that hears what fans are saying and will respond to that and not lose any of that vision. I think he's going to keep that vision, but I think that we're going to see a season 2 that's a little more clean cut, that maybe is a little bit more, a little smoother. The storylines are a little fleshed out, because I do have a lot of problems with, it's really the last couple episodes. It was, I thought it started so strong and it was so good, and it really frustrated me at the very end of the show, which is where I think you got some time with the issues there. But overall, got to say that I trust the vision of Filoni without a doubt. I just wonder, will we get a better execution? I think we will for season 2. Like, I think that they've learned from some mistakes, and I think he's kind of moved all the pieces on his chessboard exactly where he wants them, so he could tell that epic story that he really wanted to build into. So maybe with season 2, we'll kind of understand why they had to stretch some things out in season 1, but we'll see. I mean, we have a year and a half to talk about everything, and I mean, we'll get trailers and shots from set and all of those little synopsis leaks, over the next year, and we got a movie to fill in. But I can't wait for everything. Hey, Manslayer, what is this? Took 3 hours and moving the rocks in the opening scene. I'm telling you right now, Tom, I
It's me
thought
when I play a video game.
the first 2 episodes of Ahsoka are almost perfect. I honestly believe that those were my favorite opening episodes of any Star Wars that we've had. I love it's whenever we get to Peridia, towards the end of Peridia, where it starts to lose me, because I felt like we're tying in Thrawn and we're losing Balin and Shin, and they kind of get lost in all of this. And I felt like we didn't execute on the Ahsoka Sabine tension the way we should have. And
Yeah.
Ezra said he doesn't want to fight with a lightsaber anymore, and then immediately starts fighting with a lightsaber. All those things.
I had a question for you. Now, I think I lost my train of thought. Oh, how much do you think Mandalorian Grogu will tie into Ahsoka season 2?
Barely any.
Yeah.
I hope a little bit. I think that it's because I don't know the time. Like, they haven't really said the timeline. Like, does it take
That's
place
true.
after? Like, will they know about Thrawn? I don't necessarily want them to be super aware of Thrawn. Because then it feels like if Mando and Grogu become aware of Thrawn and his fleet and all of this, it feels like then they have to be forced into Ahsoka season 2. If that plays a role,
That's
if
true.
Thrawn and what he's doing is playing a role in Mandalorian Grogu, then it feels like we need them for Ahsoka season 2. But I don't know if there's room for them in Ahsoka season 2.
And I don't like,
Maybe,
I don't like when they tell stories from movies to shows, because
Mhm.
Marvel had done that a lot, and it just, you're gonna lose a lot of the audience in a way.
Mhm.
People say, "Oh yeah," I know people that didn't watch Book of Boba Fett and they watched Mandalorian season 3, and they're like, "I thought Grogu was not with him anymore," So
It's possible that you could tell a story where you're throwing in little nuggets of information about what's going on. It's very easy to kind of do that without having to, like, show Thrawn's face in The Mandalorian and Grogu and have that be part of the arc. Like, I think you can hint at something going on. Maybe you have a Dathomir mention, like something weird's going on at Dathomir. They sent out a patrol to look. We haven't heard from them. And like, just little things here and there that kind of make you aware that, okay, like the wheels are in motion, but I don't know if necessarily we're going to get much of a tie-in. I hope not. I hope it's kind of its own thing. Like you mentioned, with that was the weirdest thing with Mandalorian season 3 picking up and they're together. And I had friends that were not interested in Book of Boba Fett, but they watch Mando, and they're asking me, they asked me, like, did I miss an episode of the show? Like, I thought this was the premiere, but how did they get back together? Like, because
it should have been in Mandalorian season 3.
Do you remember, did they in the recap for Mando season 3, like the premiere, did they see did they go back and show the Book of Boba Fett scenes? So like you're probably like wondering to say like how they got back together, or did it just start with them together? I need to go back and watch and
Good
see
question.
Because it would just be hilarious if you're showing that and then someone's going, did I miss a whole season of the show? Like what's happening? And like you said, it should have been.
I think, and I'll go back and watch this tonight probably, but like I don't think they showed that. I'm trying to remember. Maybe they did in the previously on that section in the beginning, but I'm not sure.
It's fascinating to me that we have it's just interesting that happened. I still like you said, I hope they don't do all these random tie-ins to where I'm watching Ahsoka season 2. But then again, it's like, who's watching Ahsoka season 2 that didn't go see The Mandalorian? You know what I mean? Like, who's going to watch Ahsoka season 2 and not go see the first Star Wars movie in 7 years? But I'm sure someone might.
I think it's the other way around. I think they'll see the movie, but they're not going to watch the show.
Right. Right. Which is why I'm saying, like, if they tie in the movie to the show, people will probably have seen the movie. But if they tie in the show to the movie, like you reverse it and things are happening to Mando Grogu where it's like, and like all of a sudden they're just talking about all these things that just happened. Like, oh yeah, when they got launched the other galaxy last week. What are you talking? Who are these people? What is going on? I could see that. Comment here from Manslayer. He was talking about the look of Peridia and this other galaxy kind of average, if not below. So Manslayer, you joined on the late. We did talk about the look of the other galaxy about 15-20 minutes ago. If you want to go back later and listen to that, we did talk about it because that was a weak point for me, and we should make a live commentary on Ahsoka. So honestly, come the fall, I was thinking about doing a Ahsoka rewatch, breaking down some of the things, because they'll put us about a year out from the show and we could talk about some things that worked, didn't work. So we could definitely rehash
that.
Some Ahsoka.
That might get annoying with me pretty quickly, because there's certain things that I'm like, oh, I don't like that line, or stuff like that. But I would love to do that. I think it would be a lot of fun. We'll do like a Mystery Science Theater.
Yes. I would love that. That would be fun. So no, anyway, all right, we're an hour 20. I have school tomorrow, official first day back. Technically, it's a virtual day. I don't even have to, let's be honest. My boss isn't going to watch this. I don't have to do anything tomorrow if I don't want to. Like, it's a virtual day. I can clock in. But you know me, I'm the good soldier. I'm going to go into school on the virtual day, mostly because I know if I stay home, I will do nothing. I hate working from home. I have to go somewhere. So I will go back to the school. I have some trainings and random things I got to do on my laptop. So I'll just go work there and then see if there's anything I could do. I'm ready to be back. Monday, we'll be all back at the building. I'm ready. We got school going again, which means on Thursdays, I'll be coming back from school, grad school, for the live show. And then my kids on Friday will wonder why I look like a zombie because of the late night Star Wars. But it's always good, always exciting to be here. Couple of things before we get out of here. Number one, join us every week, Star Wars Newsnet Live, 10 o'clock Eastern time. Please go ahead, subscribe to the channel. You follow us on Apple and Spotify at Star Wars Newsnet. Please leave us a review. Let us know what you think. Unless it's not a 5-star review, then don't leave it because we don't want it. Next episode of the Timeline Show will come out soon. If you notice, Luke's been off on the lives for the last few weeks. Luke's getting married in exactly 1 month from today. So he's very busy trying to do things like that. So we had to step away. So I think we're going to try to do our episode of the Timeline Show this weekend, episode 52 on some comics. So stay tuned for that. Hopefully we have a fun interview with Lamar Giles that I'm able to do. Me and Nate are talking about getting that set up to talk about Bad Batch Sanctuary, a Bad Batch novel. Tom and I are going to meet on Monday evening, everyone, to discuss a fun thing that we've been planning for the site and for the channel. So stay tuned for those ideas coming out. And of course, if you ever have some ideas for a podcast or a talk or a video that you want to put on the channel to discuss, like, we would be more than happy for you guys to share those with us at Star Wars Newsnet, or you can, message me on Twitter at TyBrad5. All of the good things. Tom, anything that you would like to share before we get out of here this evening, sir?
No, everything I think we discussed was great. I won't be here next Thursday, but hopefully back the following Thursday. And thanks, Manslayer, for your comments. Have a good night, everyone.
All right, everyone, have a good night. I am going to make the bad decision of eating the last few chicken wings from dinner at 11:30 and watch an episode of Star Trek Voyager, because I'm a degenerate and that's what we do. So for Light and Life, everyone, remember that we are all the Republic.